Hello. Hey, can you guys confirm whether you can hear me? Tilak. Can you hear me, Tilak? Hello. Hello. Hmm.
Hi, sir. Good evening. Sriram Reddy garu.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. I can hear you. Hello, sir. How are you?
Shall I go in? Yeah, fine, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Let me
And
share
schedule
it.
at 6:30?
Yeah, it is at 6:30. I'll wait for 5 minutes and start immediately because
Okay.
I don't want
We
to.
need to mute and off the video also, or
Yeah, off the video, sir. It's not required.
okay, fine.
Okay.
Sure. And mic also, right?
Yeah, Mike also. Whenever, if you have any doubts, probably you can on it and talk to me.
Sure. Thank you.
So I'll take 5 minutes and after that we'll get started. 6:35 sharp I will start. So this is session is only for select few. It's only for, I advertised only in couple of groups, Hyderabad Birding Pals and also Owls. These are two places where I just mentioned that I'm going to take a session based on, just looking at others' pictures and everything, right? Probably where we can improve as a photographer, nothing else. Okay.
Right. Okay.
So you guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Give me a couple of minutes, probably, yeah, 6:31, right? Yeah, let me see. Yeah, so this session, it doesn't talk about anything about camera. Okay, so it's nothing about what camera you are using, what lens you are using, and also it's nothing about whatever the post processing or anything. It's not related to any of those stuff which we usually talk, right, when it comes to bird photography. This session is only about the perspective what we need to have while while photographing birds. That's the only thing. Whether you're able to change it or not, it's up to you. But I hope some of you guys are going to change once at the end of the session, right? Probably if some of you guys can change your perspective towards bird photography, what exactly the mistakes. These are all whatever I'm going to share. These are all my mistakes which I've done over a period of time. Okay, I don't want you guys to do the same mistake and waste the same amount of time which I wasted before. Okay, that's the intent of the session. So if you guys already know the stuff which I mentioned, sorry guys, it's only the basic session which I'm going to take. Okay, so uh, this session mostly deals, I told, right, uh, it's everything about before you take a picture, right? Let's say you have a bird in front. So what are the things you need to keep in mind before you start taking pictures? That's the intent. Okay, nothing else beyond that. So it will not talk about other things. Okay, so uh, I think we have enough crowd to get started. Maybe another couple of minutes. 6:33. Probably in 2 minutes. I'll start 6:35. So I wanted to end it quickly. I don't want to extend it for 1.5 hours, 2 hours. So probably I'll make it short. And if at all any questions and answers are there, probably I'll extend it for a next session. Let me share details of the second session also, so that if at all we exceed time, right? Probably you guys can join that session. I'm sharing the invite for second session in the chat. You can keep it. If at all we extend, if we go beyond 45 minutes, right? Probably you can join this other session. Okay. So yeah, I'll begin then. Probably, I think we have good enough members. I think, yeah, 20 members. I think it's good enough. Okay, let me share my full screen. Okay. So, okay, I hope all the people who joined, right, because I know all of you guys are somewhere connected to me, and I know you guys have cameras. So I'm not, we all know we click pictures, we know everything about cameras, what cameras we have. So I'm not going to talk about that. But when it comes to, let's say, about us, right, we actually divide ourselves into two broad categories. Either we are birders or photographers. So we usually into this hobby because somebody wants to be a birder who has a camera, so he clicks birds actually for to tick whatever is there. Okay, birders and photographer, these two are the broad categories. Under birders, again, we have two categories where some birders, right, they just tick their list. I mean, they are actually more into list building thing. Whereas some other birders, they actually sit at one place, observe a lot of time on single bird. Maybe it could be a small, I mean, common bird, but they spend a lot of hours observing. Similarly, in photographers, right, we have again, there are two types of photographers. If you ask me, there are photographers who tick birds. Let's say that somebody might have photographed uh, 600 birds. Okay, that's, I mean, when I'm saying about photographers, they expect a clean background, nice photograph, which is actually acts as a document for it could be any books or something like that. And whereas some other photographers who spend on a single bird observing for hours, they don't get bored. They just observe, they just click the same bird again and again for months, and they wanted to capture a bird doing something different. Okay, it's that kind of this topic, right? Today's bird photography, it deals with one thing is the photographers who are interested in documentation. Apart from that, it's majority of the stuff deals with the second part, where if you wanted to photograph bird in an interesting way, what things you need to keep it in mind. So this session mostly deals with the second part of photographer, who actually go beyond taking a good clean shots, sharp images, go beyond that and take birds in an interesting way. Okay, so let's give me, I mean, one example. Let's say that let's say imagine you have 1DX Mark III Canon or Sony D6, right? Sorry, Nikon D6 or Sony high-end, you can say Alpha A9, and you have prime lens with you, 600 mm or 800 mm, whatever it is, and a bird is there in front of you. It could be a peregrine falcon or it could be a common kestrel. It is sitting in front of you in a nice clean, I mean, a nice light and everything. What exactly we do, we usually uh, start clicking, right? What we do, we wanted to, light is good, everything is good, you just click hundreds and thousands of images of the bird because that is the perfect setting. Okay, so is that what is required to become a bird photographer? That's I wanted to say. Okay, so so photography, when it comes to bird photography, right, it's not just about expensive gear what you have to make good pictures. You don't exactly need expensive gear. Of course, expensive gear does matter, because when it comes, right, there is always a saying that man and the machine, right? Okay, so today's session is not about the machine, it is about the man behind the whatever camera you are using. How exactly you can better yourself to get good shots of the birds. Okay, so for that, for any if somebody wants to become a good bird photographer, all they need was a crop sensor. It could be a crop sensor with a minimum 300, because as this session is about only the birds, so any crop sensor with 300 mm focal length is good enough for taking good pictures. Good pictures in the sense, I will define good pictures later, but remember this point: you don't need expensive gear for making good pictures. Okay, it's important. And now if you look at the list, right, it's always, you need to realize that bird photography is more than just camera or the lens. Of course, if you have a good zoom, let's say 600 or 800, it becomes easy for you to click birds which are shy. Okay, but it doesn't mean that it's the end of the show. Okay, if you don't have, let's say, longer lens, right, you can still take the pictures of, let's say, the storks, egrets, pelicans, herons. All these are big birds which actually you can get them in near your place. All you need to do is you have to take uh, good pictures of these common birds which you see. Okay, so let's say that I have 600 with the d5. All maybe when I go when I see a painted stock in Aminpur, probably I'll be ending up taking a picture of close-up shot of a painted stock. Let's say somebody who's just beside me with a 300 that the person with 300 can take a unique habitat shot of the same painted stock. Okay, so when somebody compares my picture with that thing with the habitat shot, obviously the shot of the habitat always wins, or whatever with the gear which I take it. So always remember that that don't go after, because I get this question most of the time in my Instagram, asking that wonderful shot, which gear you are using. That is the question I always get for. And these people, most of these people who ask are immatures, and they feel that good gears will always produce good photographs. But okay, good gear will produce sharp pictures for sure, because that is the way you invest a lot of amount in the good gear, because you wanted sharp pictures. But it's not the because I've seen in the last few months in the COVID, I mean in the lockdown period, I've seen a lot of good photographers taking very good shots with basic whatever basic cameras they have it. Okay, that's a perspective we need to have when we go, I mean when we are in the bird photography. Okay, but to make a good photographs, you need to have very good understanding of your gear. This is very important. Whether it is a crop sensor, whether it is high-end camera, whatever you have it, you should know what exactly your camera can do. Okay, if it is a d5, what exactly a d5 can do, what are its advantages, what are its disadvantages, you should know. And everything about your camera you should have it with you, because I have seen this issue is there with me 1 year back or 2 years back, where I have the camera, but I don't know how to use it. And I am pretty sure most of us, we have all the high-end cameras, but we don't know how to use different area modes. We don't know when to use a single point, we don't know when to use multi-point, we don't know when to use 3D, we don't know when to use group. So you should know the strong points of your camera, and you should also know what are its weakest points. Let's say that I can say in my camera I can say 1600 ISO or 3200 ISO is the highest for my camera. Similarly, for each and every gear or the lens, or you can say your body has a highest limit. You should know that. Okay, some bodies may have 800 ISO as the highest, so you should always know this is the ISO you should is highest for my gear. I shouldn't exceed that. Okay, so and also you should have shortcuts. I think we already discussed about how to have we discussed a couple of sessions before about all this stuff. You need to have shortcuts to quickly change the settings from, let's say, a single point to 9 point or 25 point in the field. Okay, for flight shots or whatever it is, all the shortcuts you need to have it, and you should have a complete understanding of your gear. That's when you can take decisions quickly in the field. Okay, next is you should have complete understanding about birds and their behavior to become a bird photographer. Okay, so remember the difference between a photographer and a bird photographer, because photographer he doesn't have to know about birds. Okay, the photographer may take very good pictures of the bird, but sometimes he may not take an interesting behavior. Let's say that uh, you can say when a florican jumps, right, probably a bird photographer knows, okay, when the bird will jump, when everything about the bird you should know when it's going to do. Let's say that peregrine falcon, when it's going to fly, or common kestrel, when it's going to do, and when we have to find, let's say, a rain quail, when we can find painted franklin, all this stuff. When you cannot find Indian pitta in the month of winters. Okay, you can find Indian pitta only in the months of summer. These information is required for a bird photographer, because then only you don't have to waste much time, and you should know the typical behavior of each and every bird to photograph that moment. Okay, every bird has a unique, let's say, behavior which you wanted to photograph. Okay, so as a bird photographer, I'm saying everybody can click with good light and everything, a beautiful portrait, but some interesting behavior if you want to capture, okay, then you should know about that behavior, you should study about that behavior, then only you can try for that behavior. Let's say that somebody wants to click an owl with a moon background, right? Some vision you need to have to get that shot. Okay, whether you achieve it or not is the secondary question, but you need to have that kind of understanding when to go for, let's say, that Indian eagle owl, when it will be active. Okay, when you can find that, those things you should keep it in mind to get that bird and that behavior. Okay, so birds and their behavior is pretty important. Next is the different composition techniques. Okay, this we'll discuss in the subsequent slides. So what, let's say that how you wanted to compose the shot of a bird, so that we'll discuss today. Okay, and the next is you need to have complete understanding of lighting. So this is very important. Most of, even I don't consider, I mean, I have very poor knowledge about lighting, but once you have this kind, once you take lighting into consideration, you can make wonderful pictures. Okay, so doesn't matter whether it is a backlight, doesn't matter whether it is side light, doesn't matter whether it is a golden light, any light, if you have an understanding what pictures you can make in that period, probably you can make an interesting pictures out of that. Okay, next is understanding of the background. Okay, this is very important. Most of the time in the field, when we see a bird, so you just jump and take pictures. Okay, you don't see where exactly is, how is the background, whether it is dark, if you move five six steps to the left, or five six steps to the right, uh, do you get an interesting background? Okay, whether you go front, whether you go back, if you go back, sometimes if you go back you get a nice clean background. So let's say that some a bird, a raptor is sitting on a tree. Our first impression is to go near the bird. Okay, you go near the bird, then you get a sky background. Okay, that is not is required for you. You have to go, sometimes you have to go back to get an eye level shot, and also you need to always look for the background, what background it is, before you take a picture. So this is very important. To make a very good picture, you need to have a very good background, or else that picture will become a documentation, nothing else. Okay, that bird will become a documentation, nothing else. Okay, and your position, this is also very important in the field. Always remember how you are positioned, whether you, if you take left or right or forward, whether you are standing, whether you are sleeping, that plays an important role while making a beautiful pictures. Okay, some bird is sitting on the ground, obviously you are supposed to always shoot at the eye level, so obviously you should lie down and take that position is important. If some painted let's say painted stock or a flamingo is required, you don't have to lay down. You can actually shoot at a slightly higher ground. So that position is important. Also your position defines the background also. Let's say that if you move, when you wanted to have a better background, right, you should see what all the trees which are there behind, and try to move your position in such a way that you get that nice black background or a green background, whatever it is. You have to always look for your position. Okay, to better to get a better pictures. And the last one is lots of patience is required. Perseverance is also required, because you never get good shots in your first trip. Okay, so sometimes you have to go to the same place again and again to make beautiful pictures. Okay, sometimes a lot of practice is required, because to understand your gear, you need a lot of practice. You should practice a lot of things, and you need to last but not least, you need to have a lot of patience, passion for what you're doing. In this case, the bird photography, right? You need to be passionate about what you are trying to do, then only you can achieve this stuff. Any questions on this slide, guys? Then I'll move forward. Any questions? Okay, so so this session, before this, right, this you keep it in mind. This is very important, whatever I mentioned, right? Good understanding of your gear, birds and their behavior. This is must for, if you want to call yourself as a bird photographer, then you need to know about birds and bird behavior, or else you just end up as a photographer. That's it. Okay. So when it comes to composition, okay, this I'll give you a high level information about what are the different composition techniques, because later I'm going to take a 1.5 hour session on compositions itself, because it's a huge topic. Okay. But you should most of the time when we compose a bird, right, you always keep a rule of third. Most of the time you always keep rule of third, but there are n number of other composition techniques which are there, which you can study also, where it helps you to I mean you have a you clicked a bird. How do you want to compose? You should have something in mind. Yeah. Any questions? Okay. So in this case, right, I'm giving some overview. Let's say that this image, okay, this is composed in rule of thirds. Okay, rule of thirds, and also there is some balance. Balance is also some important thing. Balance is nothing else but how you are balancing this bird on this side. Okay, there is a slight branch you're trying to balance. Rule of thirds is nothing else but when you divide your screen into 9 blocks, right, you should always keep your bird in in these corners. Okay, try to keep that. That gives you some interesting stuff. Okay, next is the leading lines, right? Leading lines is nothing else but, if you see, right, it's mostly used in landscaping and other stuff, but in birds also this is some kind of a leading line. You remember, if you see, this wing is trying to lead to the eye. This wing is trying to lead to that. Okay, that is called leading lines. Sometimes the leading lines will give you a nice composition for your birds. Okay, but if you guys doesn't understand, probably I told you, right, we'll have a detailed session on composition itself. Okay. Next is the symmetry. Symmetry is nothing else but when you divide, it could be center or it could be something. See, if you see this this owlet, right, this is actually symmetry, because when you look at the left and right side, it is actually divided equally. That is called symmetry. Okay. Next is, if you see, there is always a composition technique where if you have birds in odd numbers, right, it's actually makes an interesting composition techniques. Okay, so always when you click, right, you always need to relate something with the let's say real world things. So let's say in this case, this looks like a podium of 1 2 3. Okay, if you can tell that, okay, this looks like a podium of 1 2 3, and also I have 3 birds, this kind of becomes one composition technique which you can do that. Okay. And there is one more I mean, again, you may ask this question, let's say that how I can crop this image based on that. If you are using Photoshop, I'm not sure about the Lightroom. You have this composition when you crop an image, right, you have rule of third, you have golden ratio, you have triangle. Those triangle, golden ratio, rule of thirds is already there. When you crop, all you need to do was you need to select and see whether you are able to make an interesting composition or not. So it is already there in whatever tools you're using. I'm not sure about the Lightroom. If somebody is using Lightroom, they can throw some light on this. So I'm talking about Photoshop, where when you crop, you have ways to change the cropping mode, whether you wanted to follow rule of thirds, whether you wanted to use a triangle ways of this one, or golden ratio. These things are already there. So, and if you see this crested hawk eagle, right, changeable hawk eagle, this is composed in golden ratio. Golden ratio and rule of thirds is almost the same. You can we can have a detailed session on this later. Okay. And if you see this owl's face, this just had a just wanted to show the face because his face is looking like a shapes, which heart shape. Okay, so always look for shapes in your when you compose. Look for triangles, look for rectangles, look for different. Let's say that this owl also, right, if you do I can divide that into 3 triangles. This is one triangle, this is one right angle, this is one right angle. If you start thinking in that way, you end up composing in a better ways. Okay, so patterns is nothing else but sometimes let's say that you are clicking a bird in water body. So water forms one kind of pattern. When the water moves, it follows one pattern. So that pattern you should keep it when you compose. Sometimes it could be a series of leaves. Okay, series of leaves also becomes a nice pattern. You can use that. Repetition is nothing else but a series of repeated birds, let's say 2 or 3, okay, more than one bird. If you try to keep them together, okay, then it becomes a repetition. Okay, it could be one way you can plan it. Odd numbers, right? This is one example of odd numbers. Usually there is a saying that if you keep odd number of birds, it is more interesting. Okay, so keep that in mind. Entry and exit points is nothing else but let's say that a bird can enter from this side. Okay, a bird can exit from this side. So that is one kind of entry and exit composition. I probably have a couple of images. Probably later we'll try to show that entry and exit. So any questions on composition techniques? But this is only a start. Keep thinking in these lines, because composition itself is a, I told, right, it's a big topic. It takes 1.5 hours exactly on this topic itself. Okay, I'll take a detailed session only on composition, I think, which I promised long back, which I didn't take it, but I'll take it once I have enough images based on each and every composition. Then only I can take that. Guys, any questions? Am I clear, or am I confusing for you guys?
No, absolutely clear, sir.
Okay.
No issues.
Okay.
Go on.
I'll go to the next topic. So light. Okay. So usually, right, you should always, it's always about the light. That's what you should keep it in mind, because light is important when if you want to make a good picture, light is the best thing. Okay, so there are various types of light. In this case is the front light. Front light is usually in the mornings and the evenings, which you see. So it's also called as golden light. Okay, so when you can in the front light, right, when the bird is illuminated, you don't see most of the shadows won't be there on the bird. Okay, mostly. And you can see in this bird, right, there is a catch light in the eye. So this front light always there are no harsh shadows. Okay, that's the advantage of front light. And you can see eye, which always you always say catch light, right? That is the thing which gives because of front light, you always has to see, okay, whether you can see catch light in the bird's eye. That's when actually it brings beauty of the bird. Okay, so usually in the mornings and evenings is when you get the front light. Okay, and the plumage of the bird shines in this front light. So these three things happen only in the front light. So you should keep that in mind, how to when you're composing or when you're photographing, you should try to catch the catch light out in the bird's eye. And you don't have, if you want to avoid shadows and everything, right, then you have to look for front lighting. So whereas the backlight, right, this is where the creative stuff go. Most of the time we try to avoid backlight, but if you want to take creative photographs, then you should always go against the light. So always shoot against the light to get the interesting creative stuff out of the birds. Okay, here the intent is not to show the bird clearly. Its intent is to show different things of the bird. It could be you can use this for getting a rim light of the bird. It could be anything else, or you wanted to get a chill out shot of this, then this is the you should always shoot against this one. Okay, again this lighting, right, will have detailed session again on the light itself, and try to see what all the different ways we can achieve rim lighting photography, how to get a chill out shot, all that stuff. We can have a detailed session later part, but keep this in mind, what exactly you can do with the backlight. And sometimes side light is also gives you a lot of interesting pictures, especially for big birds, or also for animals. Mostly you can say leopards or the big animals, right? Side light plays an important role, whereas when it comes to what happens in the side light was one side of the bird or the subject will be illuminated, whereas the other side will be in the shadows. this actually sometimes will give interesting perspective. So you can use that, try to compose or photograph birds in such, or animals in such a way that you try to eliminate half part and try to keep something in the other thing. Side light is very important, usually for big let's say animals. Okay, so it could be a tiger or whatever it is. You might have seen this stuff. Okay, so next is the spotlight. Sometimes when you are in an interesting place, what happens was it let's say in a let's say in one shadow place, right? At one place a spot will be eliminated, the light falls on that spot, and sometimes if you find subject in that spot, it will be interesting. The background and the foreground will be dark, and the spot on that spot, right, it could be bird or some animal, it will be eliminated. That actually gives an interesting perspective for photography. You should keep that in mind. Next is the flat light. Flat light is when let's say mostly in the it could be any time in the day when it is cloudy, right? Mostly in the cloudy time you get the flat light, where it's very you get a nice what is that, uh, nice clean shots of the bird. You don't see anything, but the light is flat. When it comes to flat front light, right, probably the only difference is you don't get sometimes you don't get the catch light in the eyes and everything. On a cloudy dose, on any day, any time, you can the light is flat, so it's very good time to shoot birds in that period. And you have top light. Sometimes top light is any light which is after 10 o'clock, it's a top light. At that time you get harsh shadows and everything. So sometimes it gives an interesting perspective also. Most of the time we try to avoid shooting in the top light, but in some situations probably you might take interesting pictures out of that. Any questions on lighting? Hello? No questions, right? Okay. So so when okay, I'll go to the next topic. Okay, so let's say that these are the subsequent slides, whatever I'm going to talk, it's about how you can better your photographs. Okay, so what are the things you need to keep it in mind before you photograph birds, right? What are the things you need to keep it in mind? Always photograph birds at the bird's level. It means that wherever the bird is, it could be if a bird is sitting on a tree, probably you should climb a tree to get at that level. If a bird is sitting on the ground, probably you should go to that level. Okay, so you need to get the bird's world. It means that you need to go to that level. If it's a bird on the ground, right, so you need to go low and go slow, because going slow is, then only you will not disturb the bird. So the advantage when you go at the eye level, right, let's say in this case the low level, so you always get the eye contact with the bird. Okay, so you get the eye level contact, and the background suddenly when you can, you might have observed this part when let's say that a bird is sitting on the ground. If you shoot from the top, right, background is always clumsy. Okay, to get a clean background, to get a nice blur background, you should go to that level. Okay, then what happens, the foreground, in this case the foreground and the background will become blurred. Okay, so always go to the level of the bird. That gives you a nice clean background. So you should keep this point in mind to make better pictures. Okay, next is with your images. Okay, always tell a story. Okay, so storytelling is very important because that's when it differs from other, let's say in this let's say this portrait, whatever portraits you have, right, it differs from this stuff. Okay, storytelling gives you more about it could be anything. Okay, don't confuse this with the stories which run for pages. This storytelling is just expressing the day of the let's say that mood of the scene. Okay, it could be in this case a foggy scene. Okay, you are trying to express this is a foggy background. So it could be a place or the day. Okay, sometimes it could be a day, or it could be some. In this case, right, I am trying to show the bird in the urban landscape. So you should keep. And sometimes the story could. Sometimes the story is always more about more than one bird. Okay, it's an interaction between an egret and the cormorant. So that could also be there. In this case, the story is about two bucks sitting on one bird. Okay, so always try to get a story into picture. Keep that in mind, because story actually uh, uh, differentiates you from other pictures. Okay, so try to tell different stories. It could be sunrise, it could be a sunset images, it could be different colors. You can say it could be snow, or it could be rain. You try to if you are trying to add some natural habitat, right, that also becomes a nice story. Or also if it is a story between more than two birds, right, interacting in this case. So always look for a story and try to tell that through your images. Okay, that's important. Okay, when somebody looks at your images, it has to tell that story. Okay, next is it's always when you shoot a bird, right, you should always look whether the eye is sharp or not. That's the critical part. Okay, so always look in the bird's eye. Okay, so when you take a shot, look at the eye and see whether it is sharp or not, because it's always about the bird's eye. Okay, nothing else. Okay, so if something if the bird's eye is not sharp, then probably your it's a waste of shot. So always see and if there is a bird's eye is clear or not. Okay, so so the first thing is try to go for when you keep a focus point, right, always keep it on the eye and not on the body. So to avoid those mistakes the field, always when you take a shot, look at your viewfinder and see at 100% whether the bird is when bird's eye is sharp or not. Because most of the time, right, you take hundreds of pictures and you come home and you look at that, sometimes you may lose a wonderful shot because eye is not sharp. Okay, so always look for that, make sure. And to get that, always try to take shots at the bird's eye level. When you as I said, right, if the bird is sitting on top of a tree, don't go near that, because what you are going to do is you're not taking at eye level. You should go for backwards and go to at some distance where the eye is actually parallel to this shot. If you see this actually is sitting on some type of a building. Okay, I had to go back to get the eye level shot. You, as if it is this image is shown as if I'm at eye level, but I'm not. Actually, I moved back because this is sitting on top of it building. Okay, so always move back. It doesn't matter. Okay, sometimes you don't have to go forward to get good images. You always look for the eye. Okay. Okay, next thing is look for reflections of bird. Okay, so when you get an opportunity saying that okay, this is the place is a nice place for reflection, then obviously you should utilize that. You try to compose your shots in a such a way that you get the reflection. Okay, in this case, right, before I said you have to shoot at the ground level, eye level, right? Sometimes for to get the reflection, you should slightly go on a higher ground. Okay, it could be 1 feet, 2 feet below the ground. You should go up because you wanted the reflection. Also, if you go down, right, what happens? This bird might be seen completely, but the reflection may not be in sync with the bird. Okay, so when you want to shoot the reflection, try slightly go above the ground level. Whereas in other cases, you don't need to follow this rule. But for reflections, always try to go slightly above the ground level to get the reflection also into picture. Okay, always look for reflection, guys. Okay, next is sometimes it is try to fill the frame with the bird. Okay, this sometimes gives you an interesting perspective. Sometimes when you fill the frame, right, it's easy to focus on the bird itself, and it gives you a nice clean background of the clean bouquet of the background. And you can in these cases always when you get a chance to fill the frame, right, always focus on the eye itself. Okay, the eye need to be in sharp. Okay, sometimes it's okay, you can defocus the beak, but in this case the bird is eyes are sharp. Okay, remember that point. Next is always try to capture birds in action. This is critical. Okay, this is again differentiates from a photographer and a bird photographer. As a bird photographer, what kind of actions it's going to perform. So it's you try to capture that action. In this case, a bioviewer is trying to nest. So that's how you wanted to take that. And in this case, on the left side, if you see a rain quail is calling, so that action, you should know, okay, this is what I need to capture. Saying that a rain quail calling, that's what I need to capture. Then you should go and try to get that. Okay. And also, when you look at an egret, right, when it looks constantly or statue in a position for longer period,